Three, two, one. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another special episode of Eigenbros.
Hey guys, how's it going? So we have a very special guest today. This is Diana Lee, and she is an artist who lives in South Korea. And she has an Instagram, Diana Lee Studio. And then you guys should go check out her website, which is dianalee.nyc. Diana, how's it going?
Hi guys, thanks for having me here.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure.
We're 13 hours ahead right now, or you're
Yeah,
13 hours right now.
I am.
Yeah. How is the future treating you?
Today's good, guys. Yeah.
It's good to know the human race is still
Yeah, I know.
alive.
Yes, we exist still. Yeah.
Hopefully, we all don't have corona.
Yeah.
Oh, unfortunately. Actually, South Korea, we're getting better, so that's good
Yeah.
news. Yeah, some light at the end of the tunnel.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you guys were doing better than us in the U.S.
Yeah.
I mean, we got hit earlier, so
Yeah.
it's a good news.
That is good. How is it? Speaking of, how is it you're an artist. How is it affecting this whole quarantine thing? Is it affecting the creative process in any way? Do you feel like you're creating more because you have to be indoors, or how is that impacting that whole process for you?
Yeah, well, I guess as a joke in the artist community, I guess, it's like you'll be painting before the corona, you'll be painting at home. During the corona quarantine, you'll be painting at home. And after the quarantine, you'll be painting at home. So there's not much difference. But in in terms of inspiration, yeah, absolutely, because this is such a global phenomena, I guess, that we all have sort of a shared inspiration and feelings, and just catching that in the environment and transferring that to the artworks. I think it's a really common situation with, I believe, with the artist community, that we are all kind of trying to paint to heal and to have a sense of unity, I guess, in our work. Yeah, so it definitely has a lot of impact in my work, at least.
Very cool. I noticed you also had some Corona-themed art pieces, even.
Oh
I,
yeah.
I don't know if they're really intentional like that, because I know since I've spoken to you before, Diane. I know you kind of like to paint for, the emotion that you're feeling at the time, or what your thought process is at the time. Is that fair to say that it was just kind of off the cuff, or did you have a kind of idea to paint for the coronavirus specifically?
Yeah, I think what you mean is the distancing piece that I worked on pretty recently, and that came out from, I guess, like when I start painting, I have a certain idea of where I want the direction to be, but at the end of the work, it's quite different than what I started. And so with the distancing piece, I wanted to depict how we are all quarantined and separated from each other. So I painted different colors representing, each of us just being at home. But when I finished the piece, what it ended up being was actually the pieces, since they were all like the brushstrokes were separated from each other, that they actually brought each other up. Like the distinction between them was what made the piece come together more as a unity. One second, let me find the piece so that I can.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
We were marveling also at your background here. I know that's like your tome of success stories back there, those paintings, and it's always nice to see those.
Yeah, thanks. It's over here, actually.
Oh, excellent. Yeah, because I was going to
This
say
is the bigger piece. Here, can you see?
That
Ah,
that's so good.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I'm actually
they don't touch each other, the brush
right.
strokes,
Mm.
but the space between them is actually really bringing each other up. It's so us being quarantined at home at this point, at this period, we're actually spending more time with ourselves. So we know, we get to learn more about ourselves and what we like. Yeah, that's what ended up in this piece,
Yeah.
and it's different than what I initially started. I started like with sort of a sadness and with a um sort of a I wanted to paint the dark side of being quarantined. It's like, oh, everybody's separated, nobody can be together. But then it actually accentuates each other that the piece worked out well.
Yeah, it looks like very positive and lively.
So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, it
and
was quite
I just
different.
kind of
Yeah.
want to comment on your style because your style is very I was I mean it's a style I mean I'm impressed with any artist's really work through any medium, but this in particular it's an abstractness. So for those listening and just to kind of describe a little bit, how would you describe your art style?
Yeah, it's abstract art. First, I wanted to, I guess the only real way for me to express how I felt wasn't painting an object, because at least for me, if I painted something that is so literal, it in a way, abstract art is completed by the viewer. So as a painter would display something on the canvas or the material, but the way it gets completed is by the viewer, and how the viewer sees the piece and the feeling that they get, the message that they receive completes the painting. And I really love that aspect. And when I started painting my abstract paintings, I had a lot of comments, feedback saying they see something in the painting, like for example, my parents, my mother would always say that she sees a person, like a lady, a family, a child. She would always see people. Well, as my father, he would always see landscapes, like seascapes or landscapes or mountains or hills. And it was so like, and things like that. My closest friend, who is a karate master, he saw a picture of my painting and said, "Is that a karate person like doing a kick?" I'm like, "What?" It's it's really interesting how different people have different interpretation of my work. I'm really interested in that. Yeah, so I guess that's what my art is about.
Yeah, yeah, and the style is like it's strokes, right? It's not necessarily clear outlines like of objects like you're saying. It
Exactly, yeah. I
yeah.
use a palette knife, which I have here, rather than a brush, because when the paint goes under, I use usually like a contrasting color paints, like a white or a beige with a darker navy or darker purple, or, for example. But then they get all under the palette knife, and whatever that gets um, when it gets on the surface,
Mhm.
I have very little control as to which color comes out and which color ends up showing up on the surface. And I actually like that aspect of losing control in a way. And
Mhm.
you guys know, like INFJ, I'm really into control, but I really love that I could just, it's okay for me to lose the control of my painting. And I actually have a fashion design background. And in a design, it is all about the control. Like you can control literally everything and down to like a thread. and just being out of that industry and trying to be okay with just I guess taking on the world as it is, because it's really uncontrollable what you get from the world. And I guess I'm trying to practice that through my art also.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
And just for the audience, Diana, you kind of mentioned INFJ.
Yes.
So I guess we can fill in the audience. It's kind of interesting how I stumble upon you. So I actually found first through Dave's Superpowers.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Dave was actually our first guest that was via Skype.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that interview.
Oh, good. Nice. That was when we were really roughing it, though. But but if you guys want to check that out, that's from way back. But yeah, it was funny because I found you through Dave's Superpowers, and I mentioned that to you on one of your live streams. You're like, "Oh, really?" And it's funny because you were like consistently the top comment for a lot of videos. So you would leave on YouTube, and it was always Diana Lee. I'm like, who is Diana? So I basically was like, what does she do? I wonder, and I just was curious what you were about. And then I stumbled upon your Instagram and then your website, and I was like, oh, she's an artist. She's an abstract artist, and I was like, oh, that's really interesting because you don't really it's really cool because I don't really see that many abstract artists on on the internet, but I'm sure you have connection to that, of course, because that's your area. But I just thought it's really cool how you chose to do abstract art, and especially like how you promoted it and everything. It's really interesting and unique.
Yeah, my comments kept going up on the top. I think the only reason really is not what I said, is because I'm like such a fan of Dave and Shan that when their YouTube videos pop up, I'm like one of the first people to comment.
So you comment first.
Super fan.
That's good.
Yeah.
How did you discover? We're also fans of MBTI. You know, it's almost for fun. At least for me, it's a sort of hobbyist kind of thing. Where it's like, oh, this is very interesting to talk about. But how did you discover MBTI?
I believe I first heard about MBTI in college. So when I lived in New Jersey most of my life, and then for college I went to New York all by myself, and I was very lonely, and I knew no one, and I actually was working half the time, and actually I was working full time and going to school full time. I mean, who does that? Like, I was crazy, and I was so young, and I was so confused about life. And I mean, I'm kind of used to being the, I guess the outcast, or I guess the artsy one. So I was okay with being like people treating me kind of like different, Diana does art, whatever. But I was trying to understand other people and why they would act that way. Since I am from New Jersey, where people are quite ordinary and they're hardworking and that's what they're all about. But in New York, it was just so different because going to fashion school and everything, everyone was so like distinct and different. And I was just really young, so I was confused. So I guess I got into MBTI really to understand other people and myself, really, about myself. But then just to make me even more even more odd, that I got into MBTI and I asked people like, hey, do you guys know your MBTI type? No one knows their MBTI type. Like, they don't know what that is. So I'm like, oh wow, another thing to keep to myself. So yeah. So when I discovered Dave and Jen on their channel, I was really into it, and I really got to understand really about myself and understand about other people also. that's how
Yeah, there's
that's
kind
how
of
it
a
started.
solace.
Mhm.
Yeah, there's kind of a solace in knowing that you're not a freak.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
There's other people who think in a in a similar way to you.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a reason why a lot of N types, especially the intuitive types, get into MBTI. They're just
Really.
like, why am I so strange compared to everyone else?
Hmm.
2% of the population.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like as an INFJ, I guess typical INFJ thing is we think about like our lives as in like birth and death and our existence. And I was shocked that no one thought about it that way. Like no one thinks about things like that. I'm like, why not? Like we think about this all the time. Like while you're eating lunch, we think about death. We think about the meaning of life. But then discovering MBTI, I realized like that's like a typical INFJ process. So yeah, it's good to
That's
feel understood in some way.
that's interesting because
Yeah.
like talking about life and death, that I feel like that's a very creative a lot of my best thoughts have come from thinking about these things and like sort of creative things. Um because creating life, and then from destruction, you can create new things. Um so how is MBTI affected your art? Did it make you feel like, okay, I need to find a style that speaks to me, or was it just like, oh, I already had a style before MBTI? Did it impact your art in any way?
Mm-hmm. Um, I so I was into fashion. I was studying fashion design, and then that's where I kind of like really studied MBTI. And then after I graduated, I got a really nice job in New York City as a assistant knitwear designer, and it was really hectic then because I didn't know anything still. And but then what I knew was that this lifestyle of like business and I guess design and the whole industry, like I couldn't do it for forever, and I was so confused because why was so different in the field that I chose and that I worked so hard for. And while I was very confused in that headspace, I just studied more about myself and how I thought. Like um, I guess metacognition. I guess like I was thinking about why I was thinking, like why I was thinking that way, and I guess MBTI in a way you guys know it's spelling out in words why, like the reasons that I couldn't put into words, they really organize it for you. And I really used MBTI as a tool to understand myself better. And that really gave me the courage to really, you know, step out of the industry and really pursue art. So in a way, it really helped me to be even more different than what I really already was. But even though I already was different than people around me in the industry and wanting to step out and just be creative like wholeheartedly, it gave me the courage because if I don't do this, if I don't pursue art now, then I'm going to regret it forever. And um, the thing is, no one knows. Like studying MBTI and learning about other people and observing people, I realized that no one knows what they're doing. Like even like my boss's bosses and like the CEOs, they don't know. Like no one knows what they're doing. So it's okay that I don't know. Like I'm not sure if I will be okay pursuing art and all that future things that I worry about all the time. Like it's okay to be. Don't. It's okay not to have everything perfect. It's okay to just go with it, and it's okay to be me.
Yeah, that's so true, huh? That's
Yeah.
one thing that you realize a little bit late in life. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
no one has this figured out at all.
I know.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating just how like
Exactly.
Right.
when you when you put it all together, okay, everybody, there's a phrase, I don't know if you've heard it. It's like fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so true. It's
Yeah,
just,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. So, what was I going to say?
Well, I was going to ask about more about MBTI because
Yeah.
is it more of a is it more of a fascination for you now, or is it kind of like I look at it as a hobby that I used to be very much into, and it's like, oh, I love hearing about this and people's experiences with it and how they integrate it into their lives, kind of thing. So for you, is it more of like, oh, I'm is it an obsession or fascination or just like a thing, casual hobby kind of thing?
Uh, like I said before, yeah, it definitely is a hobby, I think, but really a tool. It's like anything like scissors or glue or something like that, like paint. I use it like a tool to for me to help understand myself and of other people, and really accepting other people as they are. Like it was really hard for me to accept people who, I guess, couldn't see the future. Like, the end, and I that's in me, like wants to just foresee the future and kind of predict everything, and kind of always thinking about that, my own uh, um, outcome and how that will be. But I couldn't understand for the longest time why, some people couldn't like see what will happen in the near future. Like if you, and I mean, this is not no voodoo stuff, but like if you do something, if you made a mistake, right, per se, and then you had a certain outcome, and then you do the same exact mistake the second time around, but then the person expects a different outcome. And I couldn't understand that for the longest time. I couldn't understand why some people do same behavior or same input and expect a different output every time. But then that's just with the way they are. That's just the way they want to see things all the time. And I kind of I guess discomfort that I saw in that person when I faced that person was the same discomfort in me. Like why do I want to the same I guess mistakes that I make in my life, like not being able to get out of the fashion industry because I was so afraid and of my fear. If I keep going at this, I'm gonna be in fear all the time. So I need to put a different input in order for me to get out of this fear and the same loop that I'm living in at that time. So I guess in that comparison to how I observe other people and kind of processing their thought process, and then putting that, I guess, equation, I guess, same measurement to in my own life, that really helped me. Yeah. So MBTI had more positive side in my life, effect in my life than negative, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, Diana, did you have like big gripes with the fashion industry, or was it just that you wanted to pursue art?
Yeah. I think I just wanted to pursue art. In reality, that's what I wanted to do ever since I was very young. But the world was telling me that art doesn't make money. Art cannot make money. So I guess I accepted that when I was told those things. And unfortunately, that I went into fashion because that at least I will be able to get a good job, right? At a good, nice company or whatever. And that's what actually happened. I actually did, my dream came true. And even when my wildest dreams of becoming a fashion designer in New York at a really nice fashion house, even when that came true, I realized, okay, this is not what I wanted to do, like for the rest of my life. Yeah, so it was good. It was really good learning experience. If I didn't pursue that and like overcame those dreams, then I will probably have in my head, oh, maybe I would go into fashion design, and then maybe that will work out. I would always have that thought in my head, probably.
So do you think that that gave you more confidence to step outside once you're like, oh, wow, I can achieve these things?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I actually studied in even before working in the industry as a professional. I one of the things that gave me the biggest fear was stepping outside and studying abroad in Europe. And actually, I did that. I studied in Milan for a year during my graduating senior year in college. And I actually, we as a fashion design final, we have to do like a final show at the end of the year. And I actually got like a finale collection, which is like the biggest whatever. And then when that actually happened, I'm like, oh wow, I got a really big confidence boost, and I felt like I could do anything. And then I applied for all these like huge companies, fashion companies, and I actually did get one. And like the confidence level was going up, and I felt like I could do anything. And then actually after after a month of working at the fashion company, I realized that okay, I'm ready for the next challenge, because this is great and awesome and dream come true. But I feel like I can step even like farther outside my boundary, and I felt pretty confident at that.
I see.
Yeah.
Diana, always wanting a big challenge.
I know. I think I'm addicted.
That's great. It's great, though. You always should be pushing boundaries, right?
I know. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say that's very cool, though.
Mm.
Can you tell us maybe some interesting things about the fashion world? Like, I'm sure I could speak for myself. I don't know anything about the fashion world, and I'm pretty sure Juan doesn't know much.
I like to think I'm a fashionista. Look at me. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God, look at your NASA t-shirt. Very on.
It's fashion. Right?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
Anything about fashion industry?
Just any weird or unique things that maybe the common person wouldn't know.
Let's see.
What about this? Maybe this is a good question too.
Yeah.
Personality types did you see the most?
Ooh.
In your fashion, like even if you didn't have, I don't know. Terence brags about this all the time. He's like, I can type people pretty well.
Mm-hmm. I feel like my eye for typing is pretty.
I don't know if you have that as well. That ability, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I can't read well, so. But did you see maybe a certain personality that did well in the fashion industry?
Yeah. For the record, I'm not really good at typing people either. But I think in the fashion industry, it's not just, I think, one type, because they're different departments. Like the merchandising department is very different field than the design department, and as well as sales. So they all have to work as a team, right? As a team for the industry. But I could pretty confidently say in the design departments, there's a lot of like introverts.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I would expect extroverts.
Yeah, I actually kind of was thinking that too, because it just seems like
a collaborative,
outgoing kind of profession.
Right, right. I thought that would be very interesting fact. From my perspective, a lot of people were very introverted, so they tend to do better working alone in their own desk, and like they drag themselves to the meeting. Yeah,
just like it's science.
Yeah, Yeah. And but then in the merchandising department, there's a lot of extroverts and a lot of ESs, I feel like.
Mhm.
ESs, yeah. And then in sales, it's all about EST. EST, a lot of EST there. Yeah. Yeah, I think.
That makes sense. That makes sense for sure. Um,
Yeah.
I even think they have like the ESTP. What is it? The stereotype of ESTP is a used car salesman.
Oh,
Right.
really?
Yeah, that's a big
Right.
stereotype for ESTPs.
Hmm.
So yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. I guess Diana, let's kind of shift a little bit. I wanted to ask you a little bit about your upbringing.
Yeah.
So you've mentioned, you've mentioned that you grew up in New Jersey.
Hmm.
You're currently living in South Korea. You
Hmm.
have been all over the world. Milan, in New York. You're you're
You're a
you've been a
global.
lot. Yeah,
You're a
you've been a lot
global
of places.
person. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess I wanted to just find out, like, what was your upbringing like? Do you have any siblings? Like, how were your parents? What was that like? Were they artists too? Was your just tell us a little bit about your background.
Sure. I actually was born in South Korea and I lived here until fourth grade. So fourth grade, my family immigrated to California, and then we quickly moved to New Jersey, where we stayed for until when I was in high school, I guess. And my parents both owned a restaurant, but my mother was a chef. But before that, she was a nurse at a psychiatric hospital. In Korea, I'm trying to like translate what that is in English.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. So, and my dad was a jazz pianist. So
Oh.
when they got married, they opened a restaurant where my dad would play on a stage. Well, it was like a jazz bar. Now that I thinking back, it was like a jazz club that people like young hip people would come after work and have a drink, and it was really nice. It was really nice environment, but not for kids. But but I was, I guess, exposed to that like music and the environment where people could be creative, because a lot of bands, like indie bands, would come to my father's restaurant to like play at the bar at the on stage. And I always thought that was really fun, and I love that environment. But when I was in fourth grade, we moved to America, and um, yeah, my dad still did music, and my mother still did a lot of like chef work. But when I was and my siblings, I have two older sisters and one younger sister. So we have four girls, and I'm the third one. Yeah.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah. Work.
we all do music. My your oldest sister, she majored in classical piano. My second older sister, she did play violin, and she was a graphic designer. And I played the flute for like 8 years, and I was always doing art. And my younger sister, she's like a music, like, I guess, genius. Like, you could bring any instrument to her, she will play within like 5 minutes. Like, she will be able to play something. And like, she was one of those people. So I was always like surrounded by musical people, and we it was just really natural for us to be like creative. And my father, when we had the restaurant, we would always decorate the stage. Like, he was decorated himself, like do all the like, yeah, like all the artwork himself. So it was, and I guess I was very exposed to that creative environment from very young. And then yeah, like I said before, I was doing a lot of artwork, and then somebody saw me do I drew like a wedding dress or something in class during middle school, and somebody said, "Hey, you want to be a fashion designer?" And that was the first time I heard the word fashion design, and I'm like, fashion designer, that's actually a job. And and I looked into it, and the nearest I guess fashion school was FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology. So I applied there, and that was the only college I applied to. Luckily, I got in, and and then I worked. So I kind of afforded all my tuition, and that's why I had to work and do school at the same time. So it took me full 8 years for me to graduate as a bachelor's degree. And then,
I've
yeah.
got you.
He's got you beat. He's got you beat.
Really?
10 years to graduate as a bachelor.
Wow.
Yeah.
He had to find what he wants. That's
Yeah.
kind of the issue. Yeah.
I was much more wishy-washy than you, though, so I had no excuse.
What is that? What is that?
I was very wishy-washy.
Oh, we should. Yeah.
Didn't have anything to do with having to work or anything.
No?
Yeah.
Well, I was very, very determined to like get education, even if it costs a lot of like just being alone by myself in New York. Yeah, a lot of work. And so at the end of my 8 years, the last year, my senior year, I decided to study abroad in Milan, and that was a huge stepping stone and a huge decision to make. I was married. I am married. I'm still married. Good. So I was married back in 2010. So I've been married for 3 years or 4 years, and then I would have to spend a year in Milan away from my husband, and which I thought it was okay. I thought it was okay if it costs that much, it's okay, because I'm like so determined to like graduate and study. But it was funny because all my friends were like holding me back. It's like, are you crazy? What are you thinking? But I'm like, hey guys, don't worry about it. Like, our marriage is good. Like, don't worry about us. And then, they really had nothing to worry about, because we're like, it was really nice, and it was even better for us to like be apart for a year, because we kind of learned how precious our marriage is, and things like that. So, anyways, after I graduated from Milan and I went back to New York, my husband and I were scavenging for an apartment, because we moved out of our apartment because we're living on separately. So we had to look for an apartment, and for me, I had to find a new job. And then within a week, I've managed to find both, which was amazing. And that was another dream come true moment for me. And then when I started working at the fashion industry, I really wanted to pursue art also, because I felt like the fashion industry was great. It was amazing experience in New York, just having a lot of experience come at me at once. And it was a lot of like a growing period for me. And that I realized, okay, this is great, but I really have more creativity that I need to express. Like, I need to express. It's not just a nice hobby, even though that's what it was in the beginning. I really feel like I needed to express more what was inside. And I was doing a lot of exploring, like writing or singing, and like drawing and painting. And painting was really what I got back into. So that's what it stuck. And a very close friend of mine that I've been close friends with, a friend of mine that I've been friends with for like nearly like a decade, asked me, who was an interior designer, asked me to paint a couple of pieces to hang in his interior shop walls. And I did that, and someone, a client of his, came in and asked if this artist can do a commission for his house. And then I was like, when my friend came back with coming back to me with that, I was like, why? Like, why would he want to commission me for his new house? And yeah, and ended up doing like these huge works through my friend, and that was the starting of my art career.
Wow.
Yeah.
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 That's an epic story there, Diana.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's a long story.
Oh, it's an epic one.
Yeah, it's epic.
Yeah.
Good.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, and it sounds. I mean, the journey there. It sounds like your dad. Since he was a jazz musician. Did it kind of? Was he the one that pushed y'all to do more creative things, or was it just more like an intrinsic drive in you to just pursue these things?
I think that actually is quite true. Like one of his mottos that he would always tell all of us is that you have, let me translate it in English perfectly. Like you have to be crazy. Uh, you have to be crazy in something. That's what he said. You have to be crazy about something. Yeah, like what he meant, I guess, is to like you have to put everything. Like you have to like let all of yourself out. Like you have to be crazy about something in order for you to do anything. And you know, we'd be like 5, 6, and we're like, okay, Dad. But then it really stuck because especially with me, because I really wanted to do a lot of creative work. Like painting and drawing. And he knew that. And even though he wanted all of us to pursue music because that's his more of his thing, but and my older sister and my younger sister, they really pursued that too. But for me, I really went into like visual art because that's the tool that I could communicate communicate well. So.
Yeah, and you actually reminded me of speaking of like being crazy about your passion.
Yeah.
You've got your project on Instagram, the 365 series.
Yeah.
So for the audience, if you guys want to check out Diana Lee's Instagram, once again, it's just Diana Lee Studio. And she has a project there where she basically paints something every single day. Could you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So 365 series is basically what you said, Terence. I paint. Let's see. This was. Sorry about the noise. So this was yesterday's painting, and I paint a painting every single day. A painting every single day, and I started last year, June 20th. So now we're at like the 300th mark. We just recently did a 300th painting.
Clapping there, Juan.
That's fantastic. I mean, he sent me your Instagram page, and I was like, wow, these are all really good. And the fact them all, I'm I'm impressed incredibly just because you do these every day, right?
Yeah, this is definitely a Jay thing. Yeah, I'm like, holy shit, she can painting every day.
It would take me at least a week if I was even at your level of like technicality of skill.
We would have failed that a long time ago.
100%. I'm like, wow, these are all great too. I mean, yeah. So
thank you.
But yeah, sorry for interrupting, Diana.
Yeah.
What about it?
Yeah, so I wanted to communicate about time, and that's what I'm really focusing on right now. Because like I said before, I ponder about like death and life as itself and life as a whole, and I wanted to visualize how precious and short really time is by visualizing 365 days visually as a painting. So that's why I'm painting almost like a, I guess, diary style, like what I'm feeling, what I'm inspired by that day. So at the end of the day, I would paint, and that would stack up to be 365 big piece. But then it's actually, it's like, wow, 365 so long and like so much, but really it's really short. And I just do this one time, one day, one painting a day, and that just stacking up, yeah, it is like 365. Just doing something every single day stacked up, you could like do a lot. You could paint, you could create something that's bigger than you. And that's, I guess, what I wanted to visualize, that you would cherish your life, cherish your time, and to really treasure life. Like that's the message that I wanted to get across from this series.
Yeah, and also something interesting that I learned from your live streams, Diana, is that you actually paint really more than 365, because you have this giant stack throwaway paintings. Like, man, she has all these throwaway paintings even too. Is there any way you could show us your stack? I don't know how easy it would be.
Yeah, it's actually right in front of me, so it's very easy. There's so much. Like, oh no, these are the real ones. This is just a part of the stack.
Yeah.
That's a throwaway. I don't know why I keep these, but yeah, it's just a piece, a part of, because I don't know, I guess I'm a bit of a perfectionist that way, that I have to paint a couple before I make my mind. Yeah.
So has this made you more, I imagine it's like any other skill where you just become better and better at it as the more you do it. So have you noticed a difference in your productivity, in the sense that, like, because you're doing this every day, you actually can output more?
That's a good point, because before I would be afraid almost of a blank page. And I guess you could call it a creative block or whatever, but because I wanted this to work out so much that I am actually afraid to paint and put anything on paper or on canvas. But with this practice, with this series, I'm able to overcome that, because I've been doing this for like last 300 days. So I'm able to overcome that by now. But also, before I'll be like, so because I'm publishing these every single day, I'm as an artist, it's really important what you show, but also not what you don't show. So it's you have to be very selective, but I overcame that also, because I have to, at the end of the day, I have to show something, or else the series end. So yeah, it's really a disciplining practice for myself. It's really for me to get over my own self. Yeah. And also I'm able to work on other stuff while I'm working on the 365. This is not the only project that I'm working at the time. And like what you said, I am more productive that way, because I have paint on my hands all the time. So that flow of creativity is like, it hasn't ended since last year. So that's good.
I think that's really a good thing, just to note real quick, Juan. I think it's really interesting, because I've noticed that a lot of artists, they usually get stuck on I've got to like conjure a creative thing, and I'm not going to even paint or do anything until I absolutely want to do something.
Yeah, until it comes to me. Yeah.
It's like a month later and you still haven't done anything.
Exactly. And
go ahead.
My friends tell me, like, how do you paint every single day? How do you get inspired every single day? And like at the end of the day, you have like all these different textures that you produce every single day. How do you do that? It's like, well, when you sit in front of your paint, your materials for 10 minutes, you get sick of waiting, so you just paint. Yeah, it's just like you have to like get your butt there, just sitting in front of your craft and like not waiting for inspiration, but you kind of like drag the inspiration to you and you like paint until you're satisfied, basically. Yeah, but and sometimes you're not satisfied, but you have to let it go. Like that's part of the practice.
Right. It's almost a beautiful analogy to that too. It's like in life,
Mm-hmm.
not everything is always going to be the perfect day. So
Exactly.
almost adds to your art there.
Yeah, things aren't going to be handed to you in a way that you kind of have, like you're saying, you're almost conjuring up the vision that you have, or just the how would you say, the inspiration to create. Because that is something, I like to think. Terence and I are both creative people. He plays music. I play music as well. And I used to write music. I used to draw. I do a lot of creative things. In some sense, physics does require a lot of creativity.
Yeah, different way.
In a different way, but I have that same instinct of almost perfectionism block, where you don't want to start something because it's not going to be the best that you can do. And you doing this 365 series is making me think, yeah, you know what? It's inspired me to almost just say, you know what? I'm just going to do it every day. I'm just going to do something every day. And yeah, it'll become better and better and better. So yeah, I tip my hat to you,
No.
It's very
Thank you so much. Thank you guys.
And I guess, Diane, I wanted to ask you to, I guess, still on the conversation of art, who were some, or even now, who are some of your biggest art inspirations today?
Let's see. I would say there's a Korean artist named Lee Woo-han, and I'm very inspired by him because he's one of the first major minimalist artist movement artists. So I'm very inspired by him, by his like minimal abstract art, and yeah, that's
Okay,
so
that's
he's like the prime
Right,
person
right.
that you go to.
Now, is he a social media artist, or is he just like a really like
Local kind of.
what? Give us a little bit of information about him.
no, he is actually one of I guess his art pieces are famous for being very expensive and being auctioned off the most expensive pieces in auctions. But
That's all.
Well, hopefully, I mean, I was going to go to art. So they have this thing we're in Florida right now, and they have this art show, Art Basel or Art Basel, I guess, in Miami. And this it typically happens in the summer. Have you been?
I haven't been, but I've obviously heard so much about. Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's an international thing, but yeah, it's a global kind of thing. Maybe I think me and Terence, maybe we can decide to go at some point. But I'm gonna go. I mean,
I'm
it's
down.
just maybe we'll see some of his works there, because I know it's a very famous international show, and yeah, I'd never really heard of him, but that's fascinating.
Lee
I'll definitely go check
Woo-han.
him out.
Correct?
Ufan, like UFAN.
Lee Woo-fan.
Lee
Okay.
Ufan, yeah.
Cool.
Oh, I didn't know there was an F sound in Korean.
No, there isn't, but it's actually more about H in translation, but that's what he decided to spell out his name, I guess. Yeah.
Artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reinventing himself at every level.
I respect it. As a bilingual person too, it's imperative. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. What we
Oh wait, hold on. I do want to ask you, since you do have a musical background as well. Did do
Do
you
I?
yeah, I mean, your family grew up with did
Mhm.
you like listening to your father's style of music, like jazz, or do you go for more contemporary?
I know
things?
this answer.
You know this answer?
Because Diana Lee, when she does her live studios, she always has this abstract jazz in the background.
Ah,
Ah.
So,
That's right. I usually listen to. I could confidently say I usually listen to Bill Evans and the Trio. I don't know if you guys know. He's a jazz pianist and from the 70s or 60s and 70s. But the funny thing is, you guys keep mentioning my father's jazz days, but a couple of months ago, I asked him, Dad, who are your favorite jazz artists that I could start listening to that I don't know about? And then he answers me, well, I'm not really into jazz anymore. I'm like, okay.
he's evolved.
Okay, that was very like I misread that.
he's like, that was just a phase.
All this time I thought you were into jazz, but I guess people
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he named me all these like Korean old pop artists. I'm like, okay, never mind.
That's into pop now, huh?
Yeah.
Is her dad a BTS fan?
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, just seriously. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I think this is a good stopping point here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diane. This was super fun.
Diana.
Oh, Diana.
Uh-huh.
I don't mind.
no,
I don't mind, guys.
Gotta get it right.
Diana. No, I have a boss whose name is Diane. So
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So my brain is just like connecting
It's all
dots.
right.
Shouldn't be connected. Happens all the time. That's my intuition. But going
But
back
yeah,
to MBTI.
Diana, it was definitely great having you out here. Is there any final thoughts or anything that you wanted to shout out to the public? Give us your upcoming projects, what you have for the future, what's going on.
Oh gosh, I don't know. I don't know. I have actually an interview coming up next week that I'm recording, so I'm really excited about that, about my artwork. And yeah, I am slowly changing my style, and I know artist style, like nobody can tell like if there's any change, but only the artists feel that. But I feel like there's a huge like shift in, especially with this time of like with the coronavirus and everything, and the people and the what's in the air, and it's really definitely affecting me. And I hope that people, especially the millennials and my generation, I really want us to grow up as art loving and art seeking and creative people. And I wish that I could contribute a little bit into making that. And thank you guys so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great having you,
Yeah.
Diana. We hope you remember us little people in the future when you are all the way at the top.
Oh yeah, so please folks go check out her Instagram.
Yes,
follow
indeed.
her on all the socials, check out her webpage.
So Diana Lee Studio on Instagram, it's dianaleeny.nyc for her website. And then of course, guys, make sure to subscribe to us, the Eigenbros. This is a little bit different than our normal content, but we did talk about MBTI, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, but to me this is more about there's so many aspects you can bring into like the creative process of art and doing what we do as well, because there's so much we have to be creative in this field. So I think
creativity transcends all fields.
all fields. So I think it's super important to talk about these kind of things and bring the perspective of a true artist.
Yes.
So thank you so much again.
Yes.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah. And we will see you all later.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.